their work to come up with a way to preserve what is, in many respects, one of the crown jewels of athleticism and community here in the Commonwealth and in the city of Boston. Obviously, postponing the marathon is an incredibly difficult thing to do. It's one of the most iconic and patriotic events for our Commonwealth, and it will not be the same if it doesn't happen right around the time, as we all recall, that the American Revolution began many years ago. Marathon Monday brings some of the greatest athletes here to compete in one of the world's greatest races. Thousands of our friends and family do what they never thought they could do by crossing that finish line. The metaphor here writes itself. Today we're on the first leg of a marathon of our own as we battle this very serious disease. I want to thank everyone for their participation and patience as we learn to adapt to this circumstance. So while it may be hard to believe that I'll be filing a bill soon to make September 14th this year's Marathon Monday, I think it's important to point out that in conversations with both the House and Senate leadership, there was almost an immediate desire to make sure that we preserved this very special day here in the Commonwealth. And I want to thank Chairman Michaelwitz for being here as well. I know this is a change and that in some respects it won't look right on the calendar, but it's certainly the right thing to do. And as we have seen before, this particular Boston Marathon does define resilience. And I think everybody, once we get there, will feel the same way they always feel on Marathon Day. I certainly think it will also give us a great opportunity to once again cheer everyone as they cross that finish line and compete in the race. I think most people know that we'll be providing a separate briefing and update with respect to COVID-19 later today. Again, I want to thank the mayor, the leaders in the local communities, the sponsors, and the BAA for working so hard to ensure that we preserve such an important event here in our city and in our Commonwealth. Thank you.
We'll take a couple questions here. If you just could let me know who you want the question directed to, and then any other information that you need as the day goes on. If we have to cut it short, we will get information to you all day long. You can contact the governor's press office, our press office, the BAA, John Hancock, any of the local officials behind us. We're all willing to help. Any questions?
Was there ever any thought to just not having spectators out there, just having runners, or was it too much because everybody's in the same place while they're running? And the chance of transmission of COVID-19 made it too risky to have it.
I mean, the question is, was there ever any thought of not having spectators out there? And that's impossible. The Boston Marathon is for everyone, and I don't think that was first of all never discussed. There was different discussions around: do we have just elite runners? Do we have limit the number of runners? All of that stuff. And again, that's not the Boston Marathon. We're an inclusive marathon that obviously, with all the cities and towns here, the state, the city, we're all together. We want to make sure it remains inclusive. So that's not wasn't even discussion. I don't have the cost of postponing, but I tell you the cost of canceling is about $211 million for regional economies. It's about nearly $40 million for charities, and those are the impacts that we know of. So by canceling it, we would have lost all of that revenue. On the 20th, yeah, some people are talking about running the marathon on the 20th. We're asking you not to do that. We're by April 20th, we might be in a very different place with the coronavirus. That is taking. We want people to be safe and smart about it. There won't be barriers, there won't be barricades, there won't be public safety officials out there. We can't monitor that situation. We can't monitor the route. If a large group of runners decide to do that, you're taking resources away, potentially very important resource away for something else. Well, we'll have to deal with the virus at that point. I think we'll make a decision at some point down the road. But there's a lot of confusion here. On the weekend before is Labor Day weekend. It's student moving weekend. So all of our cities and towns have student move. Hopefully they're moving back to school. The weekend before that is August, and it's a very hot time of year to be running. The weekend in the long weekend in October is generally college family weekend. So it's complicated to fall on a date. It's also availability of space in the Heinz Auditorium, having a large venue to be able to sign runners up and things like that. So a lot of thought and process went into this. This date jumped around like a pinball for probably a long time, and with the help of the governor and talking to the legislative leaders, we decided this date could work for all of us. We also have construction schedules. Different cities and towns have construction schedules on their roads. So, when we think about these canceling of events or anything like that, there's a lot of other things that go into it. It's very complicated, so there's a lot of moving factors. So that's some of the things we can give you more later why.
No, it's going to be marathon day.
It's going to be marathon day. It's going to be a holiday.
Just like April 20th would have been this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a holiday.
Just like April 20th would have been this year.
Yes.
Question for Governor Baker. Just for the fact that this never happened in history, what does it say about the level of concern for coronavirus, for the lockdown at this point, and what is the decision validated by whether the NBA decided to do
Well, let me start with the NBA. I mean, the thing to remember about the NBA is once one player tests positive, you have to quarantine that team, and probably the teams they played right before that particular player tested positive. If you quarantine 3 teams for 14 days, let's face it, your season with respect to wins and losses and everything else gets very complicated. And I think in many respects the NBA made the right decision there. With respect to the significance of the issue we're dealing with relative to the virus, remember, we have said for quite a while now that personal distancing is an important part of how we manage the contagious elements associated with COVID-19. Now, COVID-19, remember, for the vast majority of people who catch it, it's going to feel mostly like the flu would feel. For older people, as the mayor mentioned, and for those who have particular pre-existing conditions, it's far more dangerous. But the big issue here is around managing the contagious elements associated with disease. If you run a race that has 1 million people or more along a route, over the course of what in many cases could be 5 or 6 hours, that sort of fits the definition of an event where personal distancing is simply not going to be possible. And I think these folks made the right decision here, and we're looking forward to having this in the fall.
The question is whether people who are entered in the race this year but would not be able to be here on that weekend, would they lose their spot? Would they get a refund? Those are matters that we will address very promptly and get back to everybody this coming week with all that's been going on. First, to prepare for the marathon and all the associated events, and then to be working very hard on mitigation factors that could be brought to bear if they went forward, and then working now with all of these leaders here on a postponement with, as the mayor said, dates moving around frequently. There simply hasn't been time to give proper thought in a way that's respectful to all of those runners, but we will do so very promptly. We will have word to them during the next week.
Is there anyone here from the other
Hi, I'm Ruth Ann Fuller, Mayor, City of Newton, and for the City of Newton, moving April 20, 2020 is a bit of a heartbreak, but we're looking forward to having the runners back on Heartbreak Hill on September 14th. And for us, we do a lot of work. Our first responders, DPW, we work closely with NEMLEC and the feds and MEMA on this. Thankfully, those preparations will put us in good stead for September 14th. And certainly we do worry about the economic consequences for some of our folks along the route, and we'll be reaching out to them, and hopefully the economic consequences are just being pushed to September rather than being permanent consequences.
Hold on. We're going to have hot pizza.
Yeah, as representative from Hopkinton, the start of the most prestigious marathon in the world, we're really excited. You know, it's not being canceled, and it's just another example of the cooperation and collaboration that Hopkinton, the 26.2 Foundation, Tom Grilk, and the BAA have had for years. And again, we're able to have this marathon and just postpone it. We're looking forward to it. We're going to work together. That's what we do. We take care of each other, especially in a crisis, and we're going to make this happen.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.